Ethos of Silence.
A veteran podcast aims to amplify the voices of veterans, creating a safe space for authentic conversations about their experiences, challenges, and triumphs. We seek to break the stigma surrounding mental health and foster community support, resilience, and understanding. Through storytelling, expert insights, and candid discussions, we strive to inspire healing, promote awareness, and empower veterans on their journeys.
Welcome. Ethos of Silence, and we're back. All right, Chuck. What did you want to talk about today, buddy?
So I scrolling through the good old cell phone, checking the daily news sources, and they're increasing the age limit for military service individuals wanting to enlist, and I just feel like rather than increasing the age limit, because clearly we're trying to increase our manpower, we should focus on retention.
Yeah, possibly, but I mean, you've always had the majority of the manpower comes from lower numbers of the lower enlisted is your manpower, and the backbone of it is the fact of the NCOs that can sit there, and of the couple you do have re-enlist, you have some subject matter experts and different stuff like that. So let's see. I mean, I couldn't imagine being an enlisted man going as an E1 right now with my body the way it is. That would be crazy. You know what I mean? And I can't think of a 40-year-old civilian who's in better shape than I am. What age did they drop it to? What age are they looking for?
I believe it's 42.
42. Holy man. Man, you've got young men that go into the service and come back out at 24, and they go into the doctor, and the doctor say, you know, that all their joints and their bones and everything else looks like they're a 50-year-old man. What's going to happen to a 40-year-old man that goes in there and is trying to keep up with all these people?
So Army is 17 to 42, Air Force, Space Force 17 to 42, Navy 17 to 41, and Coast Guard 17 to 41. Marine Corps still 17 to 28.
So I understand maybe some job fields, some technical things, a couple expertise areas, but then I don't understand it, because if you have the gap in that and you want somebody who's just that subject matter expert, let's just say for the Space Force, because the Space Force is something that you don't see somebody actually forward deploying for the Space Force. You know what I mean? It's something that would happen within our borders or something like that. So you want a subject matter expert, one of these, you know, computer science guys and all this other different stuff. At what point are they interested in being an enlisted personnel? Like, that doesn't even make any sense to me. Yeah, what do you see?
I personally, this is how I look at it. So if you're going to bring somebody, let's not even go to 40s, right? Let's say 35.
Okay.
I was listening to a podcast, and they were saying how everyone thinks that at age, 33, 35, you should have your life together. We're actually, for the most part, only 1/3 of the way through our lives. We're still technically pretty young, So I understand that aspect of it, but on the flip side of that, that's kind of where you should be, doing your foundation. You should be building yourself up for the later stages of your life. And I feel like if you're going into the military at 35, 36, 37, you're not really getting everything out of it that somebody that's 18 and 19-year-old would get out of it. You know what I mean? And on the side for the military, we're really losing out, because we don't make back all the money that you put into a brand new soldier or sailor or airman in that first contract. So
yeah,
you got to do like 10 years before the military even gets any
return on investment on the technical side of teaching somebody that would be the subject matter that you're trying to reach to is somebody who, okay, let's say 30. So we're reaching for somebody who's 30. So if you're not trying to recruit an officer, because you're trying to recruit an officer out of college, maybe 30 would make sense because they did their thing out of school, they tried doing it, or maybe they're from somewhere in Ohio where they got a degree in, chemical engineering, and there's no chemical plant, so they join the military, right? Something like that, because they want whatever. And that option is presented to them. Okay, I kind of understand that. The officer route, you've got the education, you've got the other different stuff. The military is going to piggyback on that expertise and find something you can do. Awesome. But then if you go the enlisted route, let's see, where would you be at 30? It'd be almost like, you got out of high school at 18, you went and did a technical school for a couple years, so you've been an electrician for the past 10 years, and you look up, you've been a plumber, you've been a blue collar worker for the last 10 years, and you look up, like, I could understand where joining the Navy at 30, being an electrician, and then being an electrician in the Navy on the boats, or even being a plumber, because you understand like water flow and dynamics and all this other different stuff, where you could come in and you could be helpful type stuff. But I don't understand where you would be efficient from like a warrior standpoint. Have you ever heard of the World War II scenario where the Army recruited a bunch of people and they were toward the end of the draft era? So like with the Marine Corps' island hopping campaign, the Army had a regiment that joined all the Marines, and they were the oldest ones. I think they were all like 28, 29 when they were drafted in. So they called them the old bastards because the island hopping campaign, they'd watch them from the ship and they say, look at them old bastards go, because, they'd be slow and methodical, but they were just kind of testing it toward World War II to see if there was a functionality and a need for, how well that would work if the war effort, pushed us into having to recruit upwards in age of the people we have and stuff. So it was pretty interesting, and I mean, for the most part, it seems like it was a success because it was only one Army regiment that kind of went in there with the Marines in the island hopping campaign. We know how that ended with some nukes being dropped on Japan. So I mean, it brought upon the end of the war, so it has to be somewhat successful.
Personally, I think, as my time as a recruiter, the Marine Corps has a great example of targeted recruiting when it comes to musicians, right? Yeah. Especially with the Marine Corps band, I put somebody in the Marine Corps band, and who's older gentleman. He's 27, I think, 26, 27. So he was already near the limit.
That's what I'm talking about, like a specialty recruiting stuff that makes sense. I could understand a specialty field, but I mean, once again, specialties are the reason they have waivers in the first place, right? Like, it's a specialty because it's a waiver, and you fit the waiver to fit the person we're looking for this, so we can, do X, Y, and Z. Like the Marine Corps band, great, you're blessed the Marine, but I mean, they don't have to go through recruit training or anything else. They're in the band, right?
No, they do still go through recruit training. They still go through, but what it is, they end up being on an accelerated promotion course. So shortly within 5 years, and not even, they'll go from E1 to E6 rather quickly. I mean, as long as no hiccups or anything like that. Yeah. So in that regard, I could understand. So maybe we don't increase the age limit to 42. What we do is give them a reason, right? When we go out and we try to find these musicians for the Marine Corps band, we understand that that's a very niche skill set, and a lot of those guys don't end up getting, even after they go through school and colleges and everything, they don't get that experience in a live band or an orchestra. So the caveat that they get.
Yeah, just like a lot of information we get from the media or that the media does, there's parts of it that's left out. And I mean, it might have been the fact of somebody realizing the fact that they're going to, do waivers for people up to 42 for different reasons. And they're not like trying to get a whole wave of 6,000 42-year-olds to buck the system or change something up. It's the fact that they accept waivers. So somebody, without explaining what it was, caught this big caption, and this podcast runs off with this very interesting topic to get talking about. Now you've got me speaking about how, the old bastards did it in World War II, so why can't we now?
Well, the thing is now is like, what 40-year-old is going to say, hey, I'm going to complete life reset? I want to get the 18 and 19-year-old kids. I want to get the kids. Maybe we need to focus on the individuals that we're overlooking. You know, those individuals that maybe had a little trouble when they were younger, right? Because how I'm looking at it, they're going to have the bodies to go longer in the game. At the end of the day, we're going to spend the money, right? Whether you're a plumber, a professional plumber, electrician, whatever, you're the bee's knees, but you're coming in at 30, 33, 35, 34, whatever. You're still going to have to go through all the training. You're still going to have to go through the schoolhouse. You're still going to have to go through all those things. Let's go find those 18 and 19-year-old kids, you know, that we're overlooking for one reason or another. Figure out who is actually a diamond in the rough and bring them up, because the long shot is you're more likely to have a longer return on investment with those younger individuals who are also going to be more fit, because I just don't see how 40-something-year-old is going to be competitive at those lower ranks for promotion.
No, and you're completely correct. The same as we start talking about in the NFL or the NBA or this, you know, that this guy's 30 some odd years old, but he's old in comparison to these young guys and trying to do what they do at the enhanced levels they do for different things. So I mean, different military occupational specialties, I get it. But for the most part and the overwhelming part, you know, those junior ranks need to be those lower age individuals who have nothing but go in their tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to argue with you about that at all. I believe you completely about it, you know. I think we could possibly argue the fact that if you have a low enough retention rate amongst, you know, higher ranking individuals, you would search for someone you could bring and put into a leadership role. But I cannot find somebody that I'd want to put into a leadership role that I'd end up recruiting. If you found a 42-year-old guy and he's going to then recruit into the military to start over at E1, which is a pay scale of, I mean, I don't even know any, he better have declared bankruptcy and the military wipes all of his debts in servitude for 5 years of service. He's like, okay, I can do 5 years. And in these 5 years, because I fucked up financially a little bit, I am going to be a role model for these young kids, and I will read off this playbook of what you tell me to do for them, and I will forward everything that's going on with them, and I'll be like a mentor for this young platoon of men coming up, you know? Like, teach them how to be a man of their word. You know, show respect if they give it to you. You know, you stand by their side. You make it clear that, you know, if they lay a hand on somebody, what happens, you know, how changes work, how life works. And when they're all grown up and they look back, they're glad that they had this mentor type figure, you know. But, I mean, I'm 40, you're 30, I'm like 6 years older than you, and you were looking up to me as if I'm, you know, a newfound father at times, you know, I mean, nowhere like that, but I mean, like that in as a mentor, looking up to me, like, look, I want to be that guy. I want to be the guy they turn to fix aircrafts, look at stuff that they ask all the questions to, that whenever a pilot gets back, he's like, where's this guy? Cause he's the one who needs to answer this question of why was this doing this? You know, I want to be the subject matter expert. And
well, I'm going to pause you right there while we're talking about mentors and age and stuff like that. You were a phenomenal mentor as a sergeant and as a staff sergeant, and you were much younger than. I think the military, by and large, the mentorship program does wonders, and it's a completely different lifestyle. Like, maybe that guy coming in, that 30, you know, something later stage guy coming in would be a great mentor about everyday life stuff, and it's perfect now because at one point you were my mentor in the Marine Corps. So when it came to everything Marine Corps, you know, I could come to you for it, and now I'm coming to you in a different capacity as you've been out in the civilian world a lot longer than I have, And so now I'm coming to you now, but on a completely different subject.
Yeah, because it's easy to ask me a question that if you were to ask, a coworker, they'd look at you like you had something like a horn growing out of your head, but yet you ask me, and it's like, okay, well, I understand where you would think that, but this is how it actually works. Oh, well, yeah, okay, cool. Now I don't look retarded to my peers because I asked a very simple question, but yet I was brought up in the military, so this entire aspect of civilian life doesn't make sense. Yeah, I get it.
So why aren't our military leaders, instead of raising the minimum ages and trying to find these unicorns, these late 30s, late or early 40 individuals who are going to be, one, physically fit enough, two, be in a position motivated to where they're going to want to go to boot camp surrounded by 18 and 19-year-olds, you know what I mean? And play the stupid games that get played and come out and, somewhat not disgruntled already, because I can only imagine what it would be like to go. Could you imagine if we went back to boot camp right now?
Oh, right? Yeah, I would not be able to press the believe button and keep going forward. I would tell somebody to fuck off, and I would get in some fights more than I would with shutting my mouth over the little bit of force. I mean, because I am smart enough to realize that I weigh more than what my drill instructor is. I'm bigger and uglier than him, and this whole little respect window is whatever, like, you're not going to talk to me like that. I'm a grown man.
Yeah. So
as opposed to I'm a kid and I want to earn this title and I'm going in and, we all read the little books, saw the documentaries, watched the movies, all the other different stuff. We were mentally prepared to walk into the fact of somebody yelling and screaming at us and talking to us like they're the scum of the earth. And we all heard us on the podcast talk about how they break you down and build you back up. And, you come out a stronger, better person, and the type of leadership I'm talking about coming from these people, they could do the same with the fact of us being able to go to classes and go to mentorship and different stuff like that. And they had those resources available, but they didn't make us use them. And then when you did reach for them, it was like when you could go, you were supposed to be at work and supposed to be doing all these other different things. So you really couldn't go. So it really was very difficult to trace those things down and do them and still look like you were superior at doing your job, because you'd almost have to take leave from work to be able to go and take one of these courses and not look like you're skating.
Look, I guess I was trying to tell you earlier, I can't tell even one of my coworkers, some of my coworkers, when they're messing up, legitimately, right? So just imagine, split flying, they're putting
HR, I get it.
It's just not going to work. So why not just improve the quality of life in the military? You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, we're buying missiles and guns and bullets and all these things, which is great. I mean, I to a degree, I understand. You got to replenish the stockpile. You got to train, all that kind of stuff. But I talk to kids nowadays. I talk to individuals that that I work with, and they're like, "Oh, I'd never go into the military because the pay isn't there." Kids nowadays are so they're so forward thinking, right? When I was young, I was thinking about the adventure. I was thinking about the dollar sign.
See, but you are. So here's where I'm going to bring you into the perspective, right? You're saying the recruiter needs to find a diamond in the rough, because there are kids that are out there that amount of money that the military makes and the lifestyle the military makes, and having food at the chow hall prepared for you, being able to come and sleep in a barracks where 85% of the time the air conditioning is going to work and the hot water is going to work, and if it doesn't, you make a phone call and there's somebody there working on it. Like, to some people, that is a quality of life that is a dream, and for some people, the crown of becoming a Marine or the crown of serving or being in the military at the age of 30, because life has just beat you to hell up, and you watch a commercial and you see the Marine climb to the top of the mountain and slay the dragon. Like, I want to be a fucking Marine. Cool. All right. But everybody wants the crown. Nobody wants the scars. You don't get blessed until you go through the lessons. We don't just survive, we evolve. And that's what makes the warrior the warrior.
I agree. And also, you know what? I blame myself kind of as a parent, because I have two daughters, and I'm constantly teaching them, hey, work smarter, not harder.
So
weigh your options, do what's best for you, and
that's
that
what
mentality doesn't
that's
really.
what a good parent does. Not every parent is a good parent. I'm not saying that we didn't have good parents and that's how we ended up in the military. I'm not saying like some kids are sheltered for too long and they're not ready for success. Dude, that's the point of being a kid, is that you shelter your kid and you expose them to things at a level that they can handle as they can handle it. Like, my son holds himself very highly and he can take care of a lot of stuff on his shoulders, but I am not going to let the weight of the world crush that young man's soul. So I will constantly remind him of doing things and constantly help him get things done. And I am very, very happy with the young man he's becoming. But I do not want the worries or the weight of the world to be on his shoulders with any of this stuff, Tell me what's going on. I'll tell you how I fixed it, and we can walk through it together so you can fix it without me next time. But if you ever have a problem, come to me, and I'll show you where we went wrong, and we can resolve it, And
I feel like today's kids are more conscientious about things like money, about their mental health, things about going out and being not necessarily successful, because you can be successful in anything, but working in such a way that it benefits you with the least amount of effort. And like I said, I'm guilty of this. I'm always telling my daughters, hey, weigh your options, look at what's best for you, where's going to get you to your goal the fastest way possible, and to more or less protect yourself, because unfortunately you can play the game fairly, doesn't mean that everyone else is going to. And I feel like in the military it's almost the exact opposite, right? When you're going into the military, you have to understand that you're going to give more than you're ever going to receive. You know what I mean? And in today's society, kids nowadays, whether it's they want to be streaming famous or basketball stars or whatever the case might be, our society as a whole, not even just in the kids, it's almost like dog eat dog world. There is, I feel like, less patriotism and less I need to sacrifice for the next guy. So I feel like what the military needs to do is to become more competitive with the outside world, right? Because
we've always felt that. We've felt that to the core. In ways they are way, way more competitive with the outside world than we'll ever admit, and in ways they are leaps and bounds behind. Different branches prepare you in different ways. We are Marines, but I know you've heard the saying that, when you get out the Air Force, give it 5 or 6 hours and you'll turn it back into a civilian. When you get out the Navy, give it 5 or 6 months, you'll turn back into a civilian. When you get out of the Army, give it 5 or 6 years, you'll turn back into a civilian. You never get out of, when you finally get out of the Marine Corps, you're changed forever, right? So, like, our way of thinking is warped to believing that different values and different things work, and a lot of those make us extremely headstrong going into stuff, and as long as we're aware of that, we'll be okay. But for the most part, I'll just bite my tongue and walk away from any situation because it's not worth my peace to get into it with the supervisor. It's not worth my peace to correct somebody when they're wrong. I'm like, whatever, you're just going to work harder. I gave you the solution. I don't care. I'm out. And I don't even say it. I just walk away knowing it. Now, that is not something I'd have done in the military. In the military, I'd have lit them up until they realized what they were doing wrong and correctly instructed them on how to do it correctly so that they didn't create more work for themselves and everybody else who come behind them.
And that's my point right there. In the military, as a mindset, we have leaders, that they're, hey, we're going to fix a problem. We're going to engage. We're going to be direct and take the most immediate action, to solve the problem. And I feel like sometimes, as in the civilian world especially, that's not always the case. We're
It's
more
not
concerned
the
about
case because there's no incentive to do it. There's no incentive for me to make my coworker better, other than whatever it helps me, And I will only help somebody so much, and then whenever they're not helping themselves, like I'll leave them out to hang. Like we do the same in the military. Whenever somebody wasn't able to do their job, we would find something else productive for them to do to help make everybody else be able to get out on time. There were certain people who they were only trusted to go pick up food and come back with food. There were certain people who you barely let change a light bulb. They'd sit behind the desk and answer the phone, and they'd run tools back and forth to people because that's all they were good for. And that was it. And half the time you had to make sure that you text them what tool you needed so they could check their phone to make sure, because they'd have forgot by the time they got somewhere. Right? So, I mean, like, you find a creative solution to utilize these people to do what needs to be done. Because some things are a two-man job, and somebody needs to be able to hand you, the tools while you're doing something. And it is what it is. They're the one who carries the toolbox for you, and they're the ones who hand you the tools.
I guess ultimately.
But in the military, you don't get issued another person. You make the personnel you have work. In the civilian world, sometimes they don't get rid of the people they're supposed to get rid of. And it's extremely frustrating for you as a military personnel sitting there and looking at them doing something ineffectively or inefficiently, because for us, time mattered, and for them, time is just the way they measure how much they get paid. So the slower they work, the more they make.
I guess I feel like sometimes I'm wondering what our, you spend so much time giving of yourself, and I can't help but some days look back and be like, man, I really missed out. Or, when my body hurts or when I'm in pain, I'm like, I had to do it. I had to do that extra mile run. I had to go do that extra deployment or whatever, and it's costing me now. And for me to see some of the things that I'm seeing, in the media and online and stuff like that about what's happening to our military, it really makes me pause to question, like, what are their thought processes behind this stuff? Because I think it should be like, you got one or two crusty old guys, at the, the crusty gunnies, that stuck around long enough. But for the most part, it should be a lot of younger guys.
Yeah, no. I mean, there's no reason to have a squadron full of ticks trying to make everything work, right? Like, nothing against him, but he could not.
No, that was a unicorn. He was a unicorn.
No. And I get it. And you will find a couple unicorns, and you'll find the people. But I guarantee you, he was a unicorn because he went home and he LeBron James himself. I guarantee you he put himself in, a little machine and sat there in it and, did all the little therapies and all the stretches and all the other different stuff every day, like the physical therapy stuff that you tell yourself that you'll do. And don't get me wrong, if you continued operating at that level, your body's going to break down, and then you're going to go through some physical therapy and some rebuilding and everything else, and then you'll be able to maintain. Like, I can get myself back to where I could operate at a level. Right now, I feel like I could probably, with a proper 6-month workup, do a 9-month deployment and not have a problem. Right? Like, I feel like I could do that. I feel like asking certain things of me on that deployment, I'd look at you and I'd fucking laugh. But for the most part, my body's gonna have to remind me what my mind forgot, because I feel like I'm a young buck. I'd get out there and I'd start running, and then I'd forget I gotta run back home. You know what I mean? Be like Forrest Gump running across the country and then forget that you got to turn around and go back and start walking.
I promise you right now, one day I never packed on any of my deployments with some icy hot. I promise you I'll have some icy hot just go around if I had to deploy again. I guess ultimately what I want to see, is I want to see a military service that people are fighting to stay in. You know what I mean? Because it's that good.
I think it is that good. I think we do have people fighting to stay in it. I think we do have, the future of the military is going to be there. America requires a military to ensure that we have a big back, because that is the biggest way to protect yourself. If you carry a large stick, then other people will look and listen, and we've got the biggest, baddest stick in the land, right? So as long as we continue to operate and maintain that stick, and it's a very important thing. I mean, there's a draft in place for a reason. If the numbers ever fall low enough, we draft people just to make sure we have an operational number of people in the military. Like, don't get it twisted that we are the machine of America and we wouldn't draft people whenever we're not even at a wartime scenario. We draft people not at a wartime scenario to maintain the bare minimum number of people we need to maintain the bare minimum of active assets they want. Mm-hmm. And there's no doubt about that. But I believe that the options that are offered to people to join the military, with the fact of them paying for your college, the fact of them doing different things and moving you, and the ability to see the country, and the ability to take some tests and get a jump start on life, and all these other different things, I think those are still very good assets to certain people in certain parts of the country. I think that because you've been a very good father to your girls, they see, especially your oldest, sees that, like, joining enlisted isn't the way they want to go, and they want you to salute them, which is amazing. That's evolution. That's a generation moving forward and not going backwards, despite every challenge you've ran into and every challenge their mother has ran into with trying to raise them. You know what I mean? Despite all the craziness they've seen in this world, or whatever crazy cartoon or scary movie or dumb stuff they've ever heard at school, they're moving forward. And I'd have to take that a sign of good parenting, and us just wondering, with some of the crazy headlines that come out, what direction of the country that we've sacrificed for is going in, which is always a good wonder, and I'm sure we'll wonder it till the end of our days. You got any final words of wisdom, or what do you think?
Read.
I
just picked up another book. Yeah, it's called, it was a gifted to me, actually. It's called The Way of the Superior Man. I'm going to tell you about it when I'm done reading it.
Okay. I am ready to hear about it. I'm in the middle of reading The Art of War. My stepson gave it to me for Christmas, so I was starting to read through it. It's really, really interesting. It's a page turner for sure. Iron sharpens iron, and we're out.
We now have a moment of silent prayer for those still in the battle, for our departed comrades, for those missing in action, and for those held as prisoners of war.